David Cronenberg's 1986 masterpiece, The Fly, is more than just a creature feature. It is a profound and tragic exploration of love, identity, and mortality, wrapped in some of the most groundbreaking and visceral body horror ever committed to film. Starring Jeff Goldblum and Geena, the film transcended its B-movie origins to become a critical and commercial success, leaving an indelible mark on cinematic history. While many remember its shocking special effects and Goldblum's iconic twitchy performance, the story behind its creation is just as fascinating. From a reluctant director and a secretive producer to painstaking practical effects and a real-life romance, these 30 little-known facts reveal the artistry, innovation, and human drama that coalesced to create a timeless horror classic. 1. Inspired by a short story. The film's narrative foundation is George Langeland's 1957 short story of the same name, which was famously published in Playboy magazine. However, director David Cronenberg took significant creative liberties with the source material. While Langeland's story and the Cameo 1958 film adaptation focused on a scientist who swaps heads with a fly, Cronenberg reimagined the premise entirely. He envisioned a much slower, more agonizing process, a genetic fusion that results in a gradual and horrifying transformation. This shift allowed him to frame the story as a tragic romance, exploring the decay of a man's body and relationship in parallel. 2. Cronenberg's Reluctance. Initially, David Cronenberg was not interested in directing a remake. Having just completed The Dead Zone, 1983, he was wary of being pigeonholed as a director who only adapted other people's work. The initial script he was offered failed to capture his interest. However, the studio was persistent. When the original director, Robert Bierman, had to leave the project due to a family tragedy, the studio approached Cronenberg again. This time, he agreed, but only on the condition that he could rewrite the script from scratch. It was through this rewrite that he infused the film with his signature themes of body horror and transformation, making the project his own. 3. Mel Brooks' stealth production. One of the most surprising figures behind The Fly was legendary comedy director Mel Brooks. His production company, Brooks Films, financed the movie. However, Brooks made a conscious decision to keep his name off the promotional materials and opening credits. He feared, justifiably, that his reputation as the king of parody and comedy, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, would give audiences the wrong impression and undermine the film's serious, terrifying tone. He worked as a hands-on producer behind the scenes, championing Cronenberg's dark vision and ensuring the film was marketed as the gut-wrenching horror it was meant to be. 4. Jeff Goldblum's casting. The role of the eccentric and brilliant scientist Seth Brundle was highly sought after, with established actors like Michael Keaton and Richard Dreyfuss in consideration. However, Cronenberg's choice was Jeff Goldblum. The director had recently seen Goldblum in the 1985 comedy Into the Night and was captivated by his unique energy and physicality, believing he could portray both the charming scientist and the deteriorating creature with equal conviction. Goldblum's quirky mannerisms and intense dedication proved perfect for the role, creating a character who was simultaneously brilliant, sympathetic, and monstrous. Femta Geena Davis's real romance. The powerful on-screen chemistry between Seth Brundle and journalist Veronica Ronnie Quaife was fueled by a real-life romance. Jeff Goldblum and Geena Davis had met and begun dating on the set of the 1985 comedy Transylvania 65000. Their genuine affection for each other translated seamlessly to the screen, adding a layer of authenticity and heartbreak to their characters' relationship. This real-world connection made the film's central romance all the more believable, and its eventual tragic dissolution all the more devastating for the audience. 6. John Getz's last-minute role. The role of Stathis Borans, Veronica's sleazy but ultimately heroic ex-boyfriend, was cast just days before filming began. The actor originally hired for the part unexpectedly dropped out, sending the production scrambling for a replacement. John Getz was brought in at the 11th hour and immediately impressed Cronenberg. The director later praised Getz's ability to embody the character's smarmy intensity, creating a perfect antagonist for Brundle, who evolves into an unlikely savior by the film's conclusion. Getz's performance provided a crucial counterbalance to the central romance. 7. Chris Wallace's effects. The film's revolutionary makeup and creature effects were the work of artist Chris Wallace and his team. Tasked with creating Brundle's slow, agonizing decay, Wallace designed 15 distinct stages of transformation, which became progressively more grotesque. This Brundlefly metamorphosis, which cost nearly $2 million of the film's budget, was a monumental achievement in practical effects. Wallace's groundbreaking work was recognized with an Academy Award for Best Makeup, and his creations remain a benchmark for body horror to this day. 8. Real monkey death. In one of the film's most disturbing early scenes, a baboon is used in a teleportation experiment that goes horrifically wrong. While the graphic on-screen result was achieved with an animatronic, Cronenberg later confirmed in an interview with Wired that a real baboon tragically died during pre-production testing of the telepod effects. The incident was not filmed and was reportedly an accident related to the mechanical effects. Nevertheless, the confirmation raised ethical questions and added a somber, real-world footnote to the film's cinematic horrors. 9. Goldblum's prosthetic pain. Jeff Goldblum's commitment to the role extended to enduring immense physical discomfort. For the later stages of the Brundlefly transformation, he spent up to 5 hours in the makeup chair as the crew applied layers of complex full-body prosthetics. These heavy latex and foam appliances were incredibly restrictive, limiting his movement and making it difficult to regulate his body temperature, often leading to dehydration. This grueling process, however, helped inform his performance, as the real physical confinement and exhaustion mirrored his character's loss of humanity. 10. Davis's fake pregnancy. To heighten the film's stakes and personal horror, the script included a subplot where Veronica becomes pregnant with Brundle's child. For these scenes, actress Geena Davis wore a highly realistic prosthetic belly designed by Chris Wallace. This prosthetic was crucial for one of the film's most terrifying sequences, a nightmare in which Veronica dreams she is giving birth to a giant maggot. The lifelike belly enhanced the visceral horror of the dream, making her fears about carrying a hybrid child terrifyingly tangible. 11th. Puppets for Brundlefly. In the film's climax, the final monstrous form of the Brundlefly creature was not a man in a suit, but a complex 200-pound puppet. It took a team of 6 skilled puppeteers to operate the creature's limbs, head, and various moving parts, bringing its alien movements to life. For close-up shots requiring more nuanced expression, Jeff Goldblum was positioned inside the creature's framework, controlling some of its facial tics. The entire climactic sequence took a full week to film, a testament to the complexity of coordinating the massive puppet's performance. 12th. Vomit drop realism. One of the film's most infamous effects is Brundle's method of eating by spewing a corrosive vomit drop that dissolves his food externally. This disgusting fluid was created from a concoction of milk, eggs, and honey to give it the right color and consistency. To achieve the melting effect on a victim's hand and foot, the effect was filmed in reverse. The team first applied prosthetic melted flesh to the limbs and then used high-pressure hoses to blast it off with the vomit mixture. When played forward, it created the seamless and gruesome illusion of flesh dissolving on contact. 13th, Cronenberg's Cameo. David Cronenberg made a brief but memorable cameo in the film, perfectly in line with his thematic interests. He appears as the gynecologist in Veronica's harrowing nightmare sequence. In the dream, he presides over the birth of the squirming Maggot baby, a disturbing image that is a pure distillation of his career-long exploration of body horror and the anxieties of reproduction. It's a signature self-referential nod from the master of the genre himself. 14th, alternate happy ending. The filmmakers initially shot and tested a much less bleak ending. In this version, after Veronica is forced to kill the mutated Brundle, the film flashes forward to show her giving birth to a perfectly healthy human baby fathered by her ex, Stathis Borans. Test audiences, however, strongly rejected this resolution. They felt it undermined the tragic weight of the story. Viewers preferred the emotionally devastating but more fitting original ending, where the story concludes with Brundle's mercy killing, leaving Veronica's fate and the future of her unborn child ambiguous. 15th, original darker ending. While the happy ending was rejected, an even darker ending existed in an earlier draft of the script. In this version, a more malevolent Brundlefly was to have killed Stathis Borans and then successfully merged himself with Veronica inside the telepod, teleporting away with her as a single, monstrous entity. Cronenberg ultimately rewrote this ending, deciding that the story required a more emotional and tragic closure. He opted for the final shotgun scene, which he felt provided a more profound and fitting end to Brundle's heartbreaking arc. 16th, filming in Toronto. Despite its quintessentially American feel, The Fly was shot entirely in Toronto, Canada. This was a pragmatic financial decision, as filming in Cronenberg's home city saved the production an estimated $1 million compared to shooting in the United States. The city's industrial warehouses and brutalist architecture provided the perfect sterile backdrop for Seth Brundle's lab and apartment, contributing to the film's cold, isolated atmosphere on its lean $15 million budget. 17. No CGI effects. In an era before computer-generated imagery became the industry standard, every one of the film's horrifying transformations was achieved through practical effects. The production relied entirely on a masterful combination of animatronics, sophisticated puppetry, and layer upon layer of meticulously crafted prosthetics. This hands-on, physical approach is a hallmark of 1980s horror filmmaking and lends the creature effects a tangible, grotesque realism that many feel CGI has yet to replicate. 18th, AIDS Allegory debate. Upon its release in the mid-1980s, at the height of the AIDS epidemic, many fans and critics interpreted Brundle's physical deterioration as a powerful metaphor for the disease. The imagery of a vibrant man wasting away from a condition transmitted through bodily fusion resonated deeply with the anxieties of the time, a discussion that continues on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter. However, Cronenberg has consistently stated that his primary inspiration was not AIDS, but the universal and inevitable process of aging, disease, and the decay of the human body, viewed through the lens of a tragic love story. 19. Goldblum's ear loss. The challenges of working with complex prosthetics were ever present on set. During the filming of one of the key transformation scenes, one of Jeff Goldblum's prosthetic ears unexpectedly fell off mid-take, ruining the shot. The incident required a halt in production and a reshoot. To prevent it from happening again, makeup artist Chris Wallace had to use a stronger adhesive to more securely glue the prosthetic pieces to Goldblum for subsequent scenes, highlighting the trial-and-error nature of pioneering practical effects. 20th, box office success. Despite its graphic R-rated content and challenging themes, The Fly was a major box office hit. It grossed $40.5 million domestically and a total of $60.6 million worldwide, making it the 10th highest-grossing film of 1986. This was a remarkable achievement for an R-rated horror film, far outperforming studio expectations and proving that audiences were hungry for intelligent, adult-oriented genre films that didn't shy away from provocative material. 21st R rating battle. The film's unflinching gore nearly earned it a restrictive X rating from the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA. Scenes like the brutal arm wrestling sequence where a bone snaps through the skin and the infamous vomit drop dissolving a man's limbs were flagged as excessively graphic. To secure the more commercially viable R rating, Cronenberg had to make several minor cuts. These included trimming a shot of the snapped bone and shortening the sequence where Brundlefly's final form melts Stathis Borin's hand and foot. 22nd, Howard Shore's score. The film's powerful musical score was composed by Howard Shore, a frequent collaborator of Cronenberg's. Instead of a traditional jump-scare-focused horror score, Shore created a sweeping, operatic, and deeply melancholic orchestral piece. Recorded with a 60-piece ensemble, the music emphasizes the tragic romance at the heart of the story. This grand, sorrowful score provides a stark and effective contrast to the visceral, graphic visuals on screen, elevating the film from a simple monster movie to a genuine tragedy. 23rd, Goldblum's method acting. To fully inhabit the character of Seth Brundle, Jeff Goldblum employed method acting techniques. He created and kept a decay diary, in which he chronicled his character's thoughts and feelings as his body and mind deteriorated. This journal helped him map out Brundle's psychological journey from a confident genius to an enraged, confused, and ultimately pathetic creature. This internal work informed his increasingly erratic and twitchy physical performance, adding layers of psychological depth to the physical transformation. 24. Real flies on set. For scenes inside Seth Brundle's lab, Cronenberg insisted on using real, live flies to enhance the film's authenticity. Professional insect wranglers were brought on set to guide the flies, encouraging them to crawl on Jeff Goldblum and the scientific equipment. While this added a layer of gritty realism to the visuals, it was also a source of frustration for the cast and crew, who had to deal with the unpredictable nature of their tiny, buzzing co-stars. 25th sequel, Rejection. Given the film's massive success, the studio was eager to produce a sequel. However, David Cronenberg flatly declined the offer to direct The Fly 2, 1989. He felt that the story of Seth Brundle was complete and had reached its perfect tragic conclusion. He was particularly unhappy with the sequel's proposed focus on Brundle's son, believing it shifted away from the core themes that made his film unique. The sequel was eventually made by Chris Wallace, the original film's effects creator. 26th opera adaptation. Years after the film's release, David Cronenberg returned to the story in a completely different medium. In 2008, he directed an opera version of The Fly, which premiered in Paris. The music for the opera was composed by Howard Shore, who had created the film's original score. This adaptation allowed Cronenberg and Shore to expand upon the story's grand, tragic elements, fully realizing the operatic qualities that were always present in the film's narrative and music. 27th, Maggot Baby design. The horrifying Maggot Baby from Veronica's Nightmare was a masterpiece of disturbing design. The creature was a large foam puppet brought to life by puppeteers. Chris Wallace designed it to be psychologically unsettling without being overly graphic. Its most disturbing feature was the inclusion of realistic human-like eyes, which created a deeply uncanny and memorable monster. The puppet, a key element in one of the film's scariest scenes, cost an estimated $50,000 to design and build. 28th Toronto's lab set. The set for Bartok's Science, Seth Brundle's laboratory and loft, was constructed inside a former factory in a Toronto industrial park. To lend the environment a sense of authenticity, the production design team rented real, functioning scientific equipment from local universities and research facilities. This attention to detail helped create a believable workspace for the brilliant scientist, making the fantastic events that unfold within its walls feel all the more grounded and plausible. 29th, critical acclaim. The Fly was met with widespread critical acclaim, a rare feat for a horror film at the time. It currently holds a 93% certified fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes. Renowned critics like Roger Ebert, who awarded it 3.5 out of 4 stars, praised the film for its surprising emotional depth, compelling characters, and intelligent themes, calling it a story about how a man's body betrays him. While some reviewers, such as those from The Guardian, found the gore to be excessive, the overwhelming consensus was that the film was a brilliant and powerful work of art. 30. Cultural legacy. The influence of The Fly can be seen across cinema and popular culture. It is widely credited with revitalizing the body horror subgenre, and its DNA can be traced in films like District 9, 2009. The film has been parodied and paid homage to countless times, most famously in Treehouse of Horror 8, an episode of The Simpsons. Decades after its release, it remains a gold standard for practical effects, a high point in the careers of Cronenberg and Goldblum, and a frequent topic of discussion among film enthusiasts on platforms like X for its enduring thematic power. Ultimately, The Fly endures not just for its stomach-churning effects, but for its powerful human core. It is a film that uses the fantastic to explore the tragically real, the fear of disease, the inevitability of aging, and the heartbreak of watching a loved one transform into a stranger. By blending a poignant romance with unparalleled practical effects, David Cronenberg crafted a movie that was both a blockbuster hit and a deeply personal art film. More than just a remake, The Fly became a genre-defining classic that continues to fascinate, horrify, and move audiences, cementing its place as one of the greatest horror films ever made.